Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Curio. My name is Jim Kantowski, and I'm a founder at Curio Wealth. I'm joined by my partner, Jake Sadler, who is also a founder at Curio Wealth. And in this podcast, video call, whatever you call it, we just find any topic that we can and get curious about it. And a lot of times it relates to what's going on in the news and the market and so forth. And one topic that seemed to pick up a lot of conversation because of the market and because of AI is this concept of fear of missing out, FOMO. Jake, we're going to start this out, and I want to know what your biggest FOMO is.
My biggest FOMO,
or a FOMO.
fear of
You don't have to
missing
go
out.
big time.
Yeah. I don't. My biggest FOMO, my biggest fear of missing out, or one of them at least, is it's not market related. I'm really confident in our conviction around navigating markets. It's I think on the personal side, I don't want to miss out on exciting things that my daughters do. You know, I have a fear of missing out. And I just happened the other day. One of my daughters was at ballet class for the first time, and I missed out. I didn't get to see it, but I don't want to miss out on too many of those opportunities to watch them grow, because you only get to do it once. So that's my fear of missing out. What about you?
Yeah, I imagine that's top of mind for most people. I mean, I had written down, when I decided I was going to ask you that question, I written down two, and one of them was, had to do with my kids. And really, for me, it was like sporting events. I use the example of sporting events. I don't want to miss like a game where a big play is made, or a winning hit or a catch or a shot or something like that. You just don't want to miss those events in your kid's life. So that one, I have a little fear around that. And then the other one is, I was thinking about is, I like to travel. I like to go places and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I tend, or my family tends, to go to the same place over and over. Again, like we find a spot we like and we go there. So, now with social media and stuff, and you get these pictures or videos of all these different places around the world. And so I get a little anxious. I feel like, if I don't travel different places, I'm going to miss out on seeing something amazing, because there's a lot of amazing things in this world. So that's my other one, is travel and missing out on some sites.
So I haven't really, thought about this a lot or in depth, but it's as I'm thinking about it now, it's like the fear is not just that you miss it, it's that you miss it and it's gone. Like you miss it and there's no other opportunity to get it back. Because I'm thinking about, okay, like, my daughter's ballet, she's not going to have a first ballet again. Okay, so that was missed opportunity. And it won't make all of them. I accept that and appreciate it. But like in terms of fear of missing out, it's the fear that you missed it and you never get that chance again. And when it comes to navigating markets, that's really scary to think about, right? That you would miss out on an opportunity and it's never, ever going to happen again.
Yeah. So I like that. I was going to ask you to change it from our personal perspective to the market and why we're talking about it. And I guess it's coming up because of this NVIDIA stock and sort of this AI. And I think you hit it on the head. It's like, will I ever have the opportunity again to invest in this stock or this investment vehicle? So I got to go do it. So like thinking about that, what's the downside of reacting or investing based on FOMO?
Yeah, you're really making decisions based on things that you have no control over. And, it's kind of like grass is always greener on the other side. I like to think of, FOMO in terms of in navigating markets. You see AI stocks popping and, oh man, that sounds great. I'm going to go chase that. And if you look back historically at the way stocks, and if you look in the U.S. and if you look at stocks as they enter into, say, the top 10 largest companies in the U.S., they have this really great string of performance. right? Double digit performance as they enter into the top 10, they're growing, everybody's exuberant. And then they reach a breaking point. And the returns from that point forward, once they enter the top 10, are pretty dismal, right? And it's like chasing the fast lane on the highway. And I've always had the perspective, you're going to get there when you get there based on the volume of traffic. But everyone is tempted, and myself, sometimes as well. You see one lane going fast, you're like, okay, I got to get in that lane because I'm just going to get there faster. I can't stick in the slow lane. And it's sure enough, as soon as you switch over into the fast lane, boom, it slows down. And the lane you're in, the people that were behind you are passing you. And you were afraid you're missing out on the fast lane and the quick way to get there. But if you start chasing that, you end up, kind of back where you started or worse off.
Yeah, so that's like timing the market. You're trying to figure out what's going to be the next best thing, and so you go in and you invest in it. And what you just said is really important. Is there's all this exuberance around it, and there's all this excitement around it, and usually what that means is it's come from a place of a lower value, and it's increased significantly over time. So, we have this FOMO, but most likely you've already missed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look no further than, if we look back at, just say announcements around recessions. And if you are looking to announcements around recessions as a signal to you about, when to get in or when to get out of the market, you're going to be left behind because those announcements are made looking in the rearview mirror based on things that have already happened. And markets are moving, based on expectations. They move ahead of those types of announcements. So, say in, 2008 and 2009 is a really good example. Markets really started taking a beating well before an announcement around a recession was made. And then markets rebounded very quickly, well in advance, months in advance of when an announcement that we're out of the recession was finally made. And, if you're kind of waiting for these types of signals to let you know kind of when to get in on something or when to get out, it can really wreak havoc on what you're trying to do and be a distraction from staying the course.
Yeah. And I saw something the other day, and I've used this example twice now, where a prominent fund manager had to explain why they sold NVIDIA 6 months ago. And, and the answer was, well, if we had known it was going to do what it was going to do, I'm paraphrasing, we wouldn't have sold it. And it's like, of course, that's
Right.
That's really not an answer. And so there's really no way to figure these things out when they're going to go up or down. And like NVIDIA, if I think about it over the years, and again, we got to be careful of giving specifics, but it's been in the news for a long time, and there's been ups and downs. And so could you imagine seeing it go down 15 or 20% a year or two ago? Like, you might have sold at that point in time, not expecting it to come back to where it was. So chasing or timing the markets, it's not a great thing to do. The other thing is, I'm gonna switch topics a little bit. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna reiterate, around, when we're thinking about the fear of missing out. I think you mentioned it earlier. By the time you have the fear that you've missed out, you've already missed out.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the point about the example around the recession, looking at 2008, 2009. If you were waiting for that signal, okay, we're out of the recession, to determine, when you got back in the market, you had been sitting there kicking yourself for months because you weren't invested. So you by the time that fear of missing out is really realized and you ready to take action, you've missed out on all the gains that were to be had. So you're seeking kind of desperately for information out there, in a continuation of what you've seen. But by the time it's out there, it's usually over.
That's right. So the other thing it does, from my perspective, is when you start to focus on these things, these individual things, it takes you away from thinking about your own situation and put your focus on like headlines and news as opposed to what you specifically need to do to accomplish your own financial goals. It sort of puts this divide in between what you're trying to accomplish in terms of your future versus a good or bad investment
Mhm.
decision.
Yeah, it's a complete distraction in a lot of ways to get wrapped up in the fear of missing out. Because again, you're thinking about, okay, if I'm sitting here today, okay, wouldn't it have been nice to own a really concentrated position in Nvidia and ride the wave up? Yeah, of course, but it's really kind of like a lottery ticket dream, right? Because you're thinking about something that you just take yourself back to 6 months or a year ago and say, was there any information out there that was really just screaming at you to do something? um, if there was, that's when FOMO is really hard. If you've experienced that, if you've kind of gone through a decision where you held off and then you saw it play out in a big way, then kind of you're really more prone to FOMO in the future. But yeah, those types of things are a huge distraction
Right.
from your personal situation. You buy a lottery ticket. Oh, that sounds nice. You think about it. Buy a lottery stock, same thing. But what's really going to make more of a difference? Spending $10 on a lottery ticket, or saving an extra $10 a week for the next 20 years, right? One's boring, one's exciting, but one gets the job done.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So, like thinking about what we do, I had written down a couple examples of strategies you should follow that will help you sort of mitigate this fear that you have. And I mentioned my first one on the top of my list, and I'll just start. I mentioned a little bit earlier is just making sure the investment strategy that you're using is right for you. So if you're trying to
Mhm.
time the market and pick stocks and so forth, then you might have a little bit more emphasis on what's going to do well, what's not going to do well. Um, but if you were more of looking towards the future and trying to get the returns of the markets, then it's better to have a more diversified portfolio and look towards the long-term horizon and make sure that your risk is really tied into the returns that you need to achieve your objectives.
Yeah, it is really kind of the crux of navigating markets over time and finding success in doing that is at all times. I mean, you could ask yourself this question every single day. Am I in the right investment portfolio for my objectives? I don't I don't know what is actually going to happen tomorrow. Any number of things could happen. It could be great, it could be bad. Am I in the right position today to give me the best odds of success in my financial life? And if you ask yourself that question every day, I think ultimately you do need to, find yourself in a globally diversified portfolio that's designed for the long term and not get kind of swept up in the emotion of, seeing some really big returns and then trying to chase that in the rearview mirror.
Jake, talk to me about one way to navigate this idea of trying to figure out when to buy something and when to sell something around rebalancing. It's more
Yeah.
of a because we talked about it a little bit earlier about like trying to figure out and time the markets and so forth. But there's a different way to sort of do that from a more analytical perspective.
Yeah. I mean, structure is the antidote to emotion. And we see time and again, it's what we're talking about right now. FOMO, it's a fear that you're missing out on big returns and a change in your financial life, right? That's an emotion. And if you make decisions based on just that emotion, the odds are not good that it will work out for you. So, how do you combat the emotions that as human beings we're wired to just have these? I see NVIDIA pop and I'm like, oh man, that would be nice, right? Um, we need structure and we need a set of rules. And that's where rebalancing comes in. So it's what you're talking about just a minute ago. Identify the best portfolio that gives you the best possible odds of achieving what you're trying to achieve. Identify, figure out what that portfolio is, and then maintain it. And you maintain it with a set of rules. A part of my portfolio went up this year, a part of it went down. Well, I'm going to sell the part that went up, and I'm going to buy the part more of the part that went down, because next year might be that part of the portfolio's day in the sun. And so that's what rebalancing is. It's structure, it's a set of rules to help you maintain that optimal portfolio for your goals.
Yeah, I love that. And even though we do have these rules in place, and going through these times, I'm going to acknowledge like rebalancing is sometimes difficult to do. Buying into a down market, there's always emotion there, but at least having those rules in place gives you some sort of conviction to do it, and do it in a way that gives you the best chance to reach your objectives. So making sure your investment strategy is right for you,
Yeah.
and then rebalancing your portfolio. And the other one that we have a lot of fun with is a way to sort of control your investment returns, is managing taxes the best you possibly can.
Yeah. So it's one of those variables in your situation that you can have some control over, right? You can't have ultimate control, but you can have some control. And that's really what we're looking for year in and year out. We're looking for those parts when we're managing a portfolio. What are the buttons that we can push? What are the levers that we can pull where we have control? Managing taxes is one of those. And we're talking about rebalancing. I mean, I think that's a really good example of how to take into consideration taxes as a part of the picture that you can control. I think back to the end of 2021. We had just, been off the backs of, a year and a half of really, really impressive returns if you look at U.S. stocks. And during that point in time, it is kind of hard for some folks to say, okay, let's sell the winners and buy some of the losers at that point in time. And one of the things that can kind of help, especially if you're looking at a taxable account, you're contending with capital gains, what can help to kind of get over the hurdle of saying, okay, I do need to rebalance. I do need to sell some of these that are up in value. What's our budget for capital gains? Should we be proactive in taking capital gains this year versus next year? And your personal situation will kind of help to determine that. But if you use that as kind of a guidepost, take some gains, do your rebalancing. The analogy I like to think of, it's kind of like deadheading your flowers if you're a gardener, right? So sometimes you can pluck off the blooms that have faded, and it'll leave more room for new blossoms to grow. And I don't know if you're a gardener or not, Jim, but that one kind of helps to think about, okay, take some gains, do some rebalancing, give your portfolio some more opportunity.
That's so funny. I'm not a gardener, but we do have like a raised bed with some vegetable plants in it. And now that I know to go clip some of those blossoms that aren't doing so well, I'm going to do that to give some room for some other plants to grow. So thank you for that tip. But all right, so we just provided. Well, let me step back. So this fear of missing out is real. It pops up. It pops up in our personal lives, in our, and also pops up in our money lives, our financial lives, and it can throw off track. And so a couple of things that Jake and I tried to just describe, there's ways to sort of mitigate that fear. And they are, just making sure that you're following the right investment strategy for you. Rebalance your portfolio. I like the way you said it. It's structure, and then, managing your taxes. And that might show up in terms of, like you mentioned, recognizing gains. There's harvesting losses, holding at different investments in different accounts. And just sort of withdrawal strategies to minimize taxes. And those are the things that you can focus on to help build your wealth and grow your portfolio.
Yeah, and I'll just, as you're talking, I'm getting excited because all of these things that we're talking about, these are things that if you are disciplined in practice and you're focusing on what you can control, knowing that you're in the right portfolio, maintaining the structure of that portfolio, focusing on taxes, where your different investments are, managing it over time, then you can really navigate markets with confidence. Every single day, you know that you have done what you need to do to stay in control. You don't have control over what tomorrow will bring, but you've focused on those things that you can control. And when you sit there with that confidence that you've done that, then FOMO, it just comes and goes. You're like, oh yeah, NVIDIA, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? But you know what? That's not a part of my plan, and I'm okay with that.
I love it. I heard a great, I was in a conversation the other day and I had a great quote, like building, investing is one of the greatest ways to build wealth. And taxes is one of the biggest detractor from wealth. And that really resonated with me a little bit because we're trying to build wealth through these investment vehicles and what we're doing. And, taxes at time can have a major impact on that. So, Jake, thank you for the great conversation as usual. And for all of you out there that listen, thank you. And just give us a like or a share or ask us a question, and we'd be grateful for the feedback. So thank you and have a great day.